do that. Oh.
I just pushed live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Madison and Mountain View. Today we have with us a couple of special guests. We have Ben Zlotnick from InCubes, and we have Eric Anderson from Startup Wise Guys. And we wanted to talk a little bit today about the accelerator world and sort of how that's changing and where that's going. And both Ben and Eric run accelerators in far-flung corners of the world. And so their insights, I think, are something that that can be really valuable and helpful as we sort of look at where the market for acceleration is going. So, Ben, do you want to introduce yourself first, and then Eric will sort of hear a little more about what you're doing as well.
Absolutely. So thanks again, Chris and team, for inviting us to join this Google Hangout. Really appreciate it. It's right now beautiful Toronto skies, 0 degrees, 25 inches of snow on the ground, and we're just loving it over here. This winter has been fantastic. So just as a way of background, InCubes is an accelerator program here in Toronto, Canada. We've been around for 3+ years. We run our program a little bit of a different type of a model. It's a rolling cohort, so we don't have a 3-month or 4-month type of cohort program. It's rolling with respect to, as we find great companies, we bring them in. It's also based on attraction or metric, so specific goals we align with the companies as they enter the program, and as they achieve those goals, they make it to the next tier. So we have a funnel program, which is the initial program. That's followed by an accelerator program, which is obviously for companies as they continue to build their traction and their scalability. There are different points that they get to. So the next points are, as they hit those traction points, they get funding, they get access to specific mentors, and of course, when they're at that point, they then have the ability to commercialize to different brands and different large companies. We've had some great traction. A number of companies are doing very well. They've raised both angel as well as VC money. We had our first company exit earlier this past year, which has since gone on to IPO on the Toronto Stock Exchange. But of course, we have really expanded, and by being in the Canadian space, which is extremely talented, the issue is that we do come from a very small country from a population standpoint, and ultimately the goal is to really expand themselves internationally. So we set up an international exchange program right now with approximately 25 hubs from around the globe. That includes across Europe, Middle East, Asia, Latin America, and of course within the US, in order for our companies to have the ability to go down to those locations, work out of them, and tap into the resources in the network. And of course, vice versa, come to one of those locations that want to come to the Canadian space. InCubes is a home for them, and it's gone very well. We just had a big event with actually the U.S. ambassador to Canada as well as the mayor of Toronto. So things are going well over here at InCubes, but ultimately we love doing these things. The international plays are a key player to the InCube success.
Awesome. And Eric, do you want to tell us a little bit about Wise Guys? My alumni, as it were.
Yeah, Startup Wise Guys. Chris knows all about us. He was one of the first Wise Guys, actually. And we're based in Tallinn, Estonia. And today's actually the Estonian Independence. So I've been working from the couch. So probably go do some festivities tonight. We run a 3+1 month program. We focus primarily or solely on B2B companies. So we found after the first program with our B2B focus, we found a few things that we can do very differently. So we're taking a much more investor-driven approach, and we're focusing on lead mentors and people who can really hit the benchmarks, because we're finding more mature founders, and we're just making stronger connections with better mentors specifically for them. So our first batch, we've had some decent success. We've had 3 companies are finalizing a seed round, and 2 companies have decided that they're going to keep bootstrapping because they're making enough money to operate as a team. It's still quite recent after that, so we don't have too many key metrics, and we can't really discuss the teams that are negotiating investment at the moment. But we're really excited for the next team. We've been focusing on hire more proficient founders, and finding them has been a challenge, but it's proving to be super interesting and people who are executing really fast. We don't have the funnel program like Ben was mentioning, but we are focusing heavily on an after program. What are we going to do with our alumni? And how are we going to make this program stronger? So I think that's pretty much an overview of where we are. We're a small team of 4 people. We take a very boutique approach. I focus on the business development side. We have another person focusing on the investment side, and we overlap these roadmaps. So we've built a specific curriculum as well. So we have a sales curriculum where we bring in people from all over the world to come in and talk about how to drive sales in larger markets. We have a pitching curriculum because we focus primarily on Central Eastern European startups. So moving into London is really difficult language-wise, or the US is really difficult language-wise. I'm originally from California, so that gives me some natural advantage. And we also have an investment curriculum. So pitching sales and investment curriculums that we're bringing in really, really great international investors over to Estonia to get the teams ready to go. So we're kind of just hacking all of this. We're like driving this and making it a lot faster for the teams when they leave an accelerator.
So something that that I've been curious about, and we've talked about this before, guys, is that you had YCOM and then you had Techstars, and like those two models, like the first being a very, very ad hoc, sort of loose, more relationships and network being what drives that program, and then Techstars, which we had originally at Wise Guys in terms of a 3-month setup. That was very. Oh, apparently I'm being asked to leave. That setup was something that a lot of programs have based themselves on since the accelerator sort of market started kicking off. And I'm just wondering if you see either one of those being the future, or if there's a different model that you think makes a whole lot more sense going forward.
Ben, you want to take this?
All right.
I'll take this.
I can start off. It looks like we've got a little bit of musical chairs, but I'm cool with that. So with regards to the models, YC and Techstars and the like in the U.S. have obviously been extremely successful at what they've been doing. They've been able to raise funds. They go after the masses as well. In Canada itself, just from that perspective, there's a lot of opportunity over here, but the funding availability is definitely different than the U.S. As well as in other countries. So we do have to conform and switch up our model continuously to see what will work, what doesn't work. Like Eric was saying beforehand, we have a big focus as well on the B2B enterprise place. Canadians have always been successful with that. On the consumer side of things, we obviously have had our outliers, but overall we've never really been that successful. We're a short trip to the U.S. and some of the major cities, including New York, of course. But ultimately, we need to run our programs differently. So whether that means partnering up with different players in order to help our companies commercialize, creating an investor committee that is not only Canadian-based but international, are different things that we need to do. And that's really why Incubes itself has moved away from the 3-month program and moved to the rolling cohort. And we have seen, a lot of success from that respect. All right, and we're going to pass that off. Hardware malfunction. Go ahead, guys. On to the next.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, I think it's interesting you mentioned kind of B2B versus B2C and building, not necessarily building for the Canadian ecosystem. What are some of the trends you guys are seeing within companies that are coming up within the B2B space? Curious the differences between Canada and Estonia. So maybe Eric, take it away first.
Just to go back one step, I totally answer this. But I was actually working at Techstars. That's how I was introduced to Wise Guys. And there was so many good things that happened there. This serendipitous moments, this mentor-driven program. But you have to specify. I think now it's becoming more important to focus and have a niche and bring in the experts for this niche. So that's what we were really focusing on. The example I like to use is how many of you have purchased an app in the last month? Maybe a few, but how many of you have purchased a beer or a coffee? I think everyone probably has. So there's still this big difference in B2B companies, which are actually making money, compared to consumer companies who are just trying to collect data and get users. Some of the differences that we've seen, we're not just primarily Estonia. We had 9 companies from 10 different countries in our last program. And we have 10 companies from 7 different countries for this program. The people, like, we get some really, like, from the markets like Ukraine, we have a lot of companies from Ukraine. We have Estonia, of course. We have Central Eastern Europe is heavily dominated, and we get these data scientists, people who just love numbers, people who love analytics, and it's really cool to see what they're doing. Like one company, I have no idea like if it's crazy or if it's brilliant, but they're data scientists totally just researching hashtags. And the information they're pulling, it's like Google Analytics, but just for hashtags. And it's actually a pretty cool company. And we'll see what they actually do. They've been through 2 other accelerators and they've raised money, but like these types of people, semantic analysis seems to be really popular right now, which is just getting information out of written word, reviews, stuff like this. Yeah, so I think the information is there. And in this new age of information, it's how do you add value to the bigger companies? How do you add value to the people who are willing to pay for it? So there's, I think, a million ways to do this.
Ben, I have a question about how ready and eager startups are in Canada to go global. I'm sure a lot of them see the opportunity to move into America, pretty obvious on their roadmap. But do you find that startups are often, and Eric, this could apply to yours too, a little bit nervous about taking their product globally and don't always see the opportunity that lies from global expansion because the thought of global just might be so daunting to them? And do you help them see opportunities in new countries and markets that they may not have thought of?
Yeah, so we definitely open the doors for them through our network. The downside to Canadians, and not all Canadians, so I'm not generalizing over here, but Canadians in general are more conservative. So, you know, we didn't have a recession. There was no, crazy downturn from that respect, mainly because our banks are extremely strong. The economy continues to grow, although the dollar has dropped in the last 6 months. But ultimately, Canadians are conservative. They're not as aggressive. So I would say that is definitely some form of a downside. On the other hand, this whole new ecosystem of entrepreneurship and growth and startups is a completely different wave. So the energy that's involved with it, and by them going to other open cohorts, or whether it's co-working spaces or other accelerators, that drive is definitely there. So it's kind of like it's a double sword over here, where Canadians are somewhat, let's call it, laid back to a certain extent. You want to drive in the street, make a left-hand turn, people are going to let you in without keeping their hands on the horn. But that sometimes can be, for an entrepreneur, somewhat detrimental because they don't have that push, that aggressiveness. We're going to make it happen. We're going to do whatever it takes. We'll work 23 out of 24 hours of the day. So there is that opportunity. There is that shift to do those type of things, as well as building out those unicorns, billion-dollar companies. So, things are definitely changing towards that, and it's going in the right direction. I mean, we've got some great companies in the Canadian space, and a lot of the successful entrepreneurs are tapping back into, through different associations and different programs, that might have been Canadian, born and grown up, but many of them are now coming back as well and investing in the community, as well as helping out from a mentorship standpoint.
Awesome.
Right, and in Estonia, since we have people moving here, people are ready to go abroad. People are ready to go to larger markets, and we have a few cases of people leaving UK to come to Estonia to build their product, get away from their friends and family, kind of hide out for 3 or 4 months, and then go back into larger markets. One of the problems we're facing is people just aren't ready yet. But Estonia is a good bridge to be like partially in Europe, maybe like part of their market where their success has been in Russia or other smaller countries that are ready to go into Europe, but they just haven't tested it in the market yet. So Estonia is a really interesting testing ground for stuff like this.
Yeah, well, in Estonia, we also, I think one of the advantages, right, is that because it's so small, and this I think is true for many of the countries within Eastern Europe, because it's so small, people tend to look at larger markets first. So they're thinking from the moment they start their company about where you go next. So it makes that like mental process in the end, it makes it much easier. I think that we're coming up near the end. I really wanted to thank Ben and Eric for joining us today. I always love talking about this stuff and sort of catching up with old friends and seeing how things are going. So we will be back for Madison Mountain View next week. Thanks to everybody for joining.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
You guys.
Thank you.